Can everyone hear?
Yes.
That's good, because when I'm out there, I can't hear. Today I have with me Joann Condellone. Could you stand up, Joann? Okay. I met Joann when she came into the frame shop. She wanted an article framed, or several articles, for the Mount Olive Mother Jones presentation and annual celebration. It was a delight to meet her, and it's been a delight to know her. And I met Loretta Williams through Joann. I'll let Joann tell you more about her. I could have chosen several topics for Joann to speak about. She's like Richard. You invite him to speak and he says, well, which one of the 5 do you want me to talk on? Anyway, she can tell you about that. She's also on the board of the Mother Jones Museum and the Mount Olive Union Miners Association. Are you ready, Joann? Okay.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And is the mic okay? Can you hear? Okay, great. Closer. Okay, closer. So I'm Joann Condellone, and I met Jennifer, as she said, and over the years, Frames by 3 has been more than kind to us at both of our Mount Olive organizations with their expertise and generous help for a variety of things. Closer. Okay, closer. So we've gotten to know her, and they ask questions, and I tell them probably more of the story that they would like to know when they're trying to earn a living. And I'm standing there talking about labor history to them at their county. But nonetheless, wonderful work, very kind to us, has come to our programs. And Jennifer asked me to just tell you briefly who I am and what we do, and to introduce our wonderful Mother Jones actor, Loretta Williams, which I will do shortly. So the two of us, Mother Jones and I, talk to folks all over and help with our organization's programs and presentations. Last year, we hosted the Madison County Historical Society's Children's History Camp, and they went to 2 towns in Macoupin County, Gillespie and Mount Olive, both real seminal sites for labor progress and change for a healthier society. And that was incredibly good fun. So if you ever have children's groups that would like to be, like to learn more about this history, we're open. We also have tours and speak to people from all over the place. So I met Loretta about 7 years ago, Loretta? Yes, when we were seeking a Mother Jones actor for our programs in Mount Olive. And we went to the Little Theater in Alton and got great help from them. They introduced us to Loretta. Loretta and I had lunch. I didn't frighten her away, although God knows she should have been. I brought her a stack, you know, a foot high of, you read this and listen to that and look at that. And she turned into Mother Jones in the most magnificent form. So she is a wonderful actor, like Mother Jones, a magnificent seamstress, an artist, an educator of all kinds. So once I'm finished prattling, you'll get the real thing. You'll get Mother herself. So Jennifer said I should let you know how I came to this work. I grew up in a family of Northern Italians, generations of immigrants who came from the Piedmont and Tuscany, farmers and mineral miners, not much coal in Italy, but lots of mineral miners, and they came to America. I always say they followed their hunger to America and settled first in Collinsville, where I grew up, and then in some years, some of our family, my great-grandparents and so forth, went to Macoupin County. Typical for coal miners, they went where the work was, and that often meant they had to move around move around a lot. So I grew up in the Union Hall and hearing the story at the table and visiting the Union Miners Cemetery. So it was part of how that labor history and immigrant history was part of how I imagined America came to be the America that I lived in. My education is in nursing. I have a bachelor's degree in nursing from SIU and a master's degree in nursing with a specialty in midwifery from St. Louis University. So I spent 40 years birth and babies and teaching public health and teaching nurses. And I retired and came back to my home place and got really interested in working with these organizations again. Was invited to help with the formation of the Mother Jones Museum Mount Olive, which is in the City Hall building in tiny little Mount Olive, 2,500 people. And they were wise enough when a tornado knocked down the block in City Hall and they had to rebuild the building to make space for our wonderful museum. So we have a lot of community support, a lot of interest in that piece of history. And of course, the Union Miners Cemetery is also in Mount Olive, and it's been there since 1899. This year, it's 125th anniversary. And there will be one hell of a party on that date in the fall. The president of the United Mine Workers will be there. So if any of you have ever heard Cecil Roberts speak, you just know you don't ever want to be the speaker after him because, wow, he is something. So he'll be there and there'll be music and miners' lunch. We'll feed all of our miners and we'll have a solemn parade. So I work with these two organizations, and what do we do? What are we trying to do? We're trying to keep that story alive of how we got to have a Union Miners Cemetery. You know, like all of these labor battles, it came out of a struggle where people died. There was a battle called the Battle of Verdun. Verdun's a tiny little town at the top of Macoupin County, where there was a lockout by a very rich coal company, and they brought in men to replace the locked out miners. Terrible gun battle, 15 people died. One of the miners who died was Fred Long from Edwardsville here. 3 of the miners who died were in the battle. Others died later. A total of 8 of them died altogether, miners. 3 of those miners are buried in that Union Miner Cemetery that was established to give them a place to be buried, because many towns didn't like the union activity, didn't like upsetting the socioeconomic status quo, and didn't want the miners buried in their cemetery. So the United Mine Workers made its own cemetery, and we're still here 125 years later. So one of those very young, Fred Long, is buried in Woodlawn here, and he was an Edwardsville miner who died in that. He was mining in Mount Olive. 4 of those miners died in the battle. So there's a rich history, and sometimes we forget that there's always blood in these elemental struggles for better working conditions, for justice. And that's part of the story we try to keep alive. But the most important part of the story we try to keep alive is what that's meant to the larger culture, what it meant when miners got a decent wage. Their kids could stay in school. They had a chance to go beyond primary school. They could build their own houses. They could contribute to the businesses of the communities. Everybody came out of it doing better. So we try to tell that story, and that story is very much alive, and to express our gratitude for all the things that those people with their very hard work in the most awful conditions have done for the rest of us. And of course, we'd like to have a party too. So twice a year, we have a big celebration. The one that's coming up now, and I brought flyers to show you, is May Day in Mount Olive on the 5th of May. And the other one we do is Miners' Day in the fall, which I told you about. So that's what we do. We try to keep the story going. So we do that with programs. We do that with a website, webinars, speaking to people, museum tours, and all the ways that we try in today's age to get the attention of people who have so many demands on our attention all the time. But we do it best with Mother Jones. Now, Mary Harris Mother Jones was born in Cork in 1837, an impoverished family. They left potato famine. They went to Canada. She learned to be a school teacher. They came to America. She married an activist, ironmonger. They had 4 kids, and George, her husband, George Jones, she was born Mary Harris, George Jones, and all 4 of their children died over a 2-week period in a terrible yellow fever epidemic in Memphis. And so Mother was left alone, and she went back to Illinois, to Chicago, opened a dressmaking business, which she was very successful in, and along came the Chicago fire. Lost everything she had. She writes in her autobiography about standing in the river all night long to stay away from the flames. So she's a young woman, late 40s at this time. She's been through the plague. She's been through the famine, and she's been through the fire, but she did not give up. She got involved in labor activities, in writing and taking care of poor people, and turned herself into Mother Jones when she was no longer a young woman, and wore that costume that Mother wears today, that she kept until the end of her life in 1930 at the age of 93. And she was buried in our cemetery, and 30,000 people came to that tiny little town for her funeral. And 6 years later at the cemetery in 1936, they erected the beautiful monument that's there today that you will see on the flyer. And 50,000 people came to that, the biggest crowd that's ever been through the streets of Mount Olive. I don't know how they would respond to 50,000 people coming to town today. So she spent her life advocating for child workers, for coal miners, for hardworking families all over the country. She was called the miner's angel and the most hated woman in America. She knew how to get your attention. She knew how to keep your attention. She knew how to make her story attended to, and she knew how to put on a good show. So here she is, Mother Jones.
Oh, thank you for having me here today. You're a brave bunch to put up with me. Do I need a microphone? You think I need a microphone? Yeah, well, some of you might have your hearing aids turned down. Can you hear me okay now? Because I don't want to have to come back there and wake any of you up, because I know you've got full bellies and a Guinness in you, and you're probably looking for a place to take a nap. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mary Harris Jones. Oh, but I've been called a lot of other names. Bolshevik, socialist, most dangerous woman in America, walking wrath of God, and Mother Jones. Well, if a mother hen is dangerous, somebody had to be brave enough to stand up here and do it. You know, Patrick Henry said, "Give me liberty or give me death." But he also said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Liberty. Now listen up. Do you know what that is? Do you? Freedom from arbitrary control. Did you hear that? Liberty is freedom from arbitrary control. And I'm going to give you an example here. The miners in Verdun had gone on strike. They were on strike for fair wages, equality, and justice. They wanted an 8-hour workday, 8 hours to work, 8 hours to sleep, and 8 hours of liberty. Liberty, what did I tell you that was? Yeah, you're not even listening to me. Freedom from arbitrary control. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of liberty, which means I can't hear you. That's right. Don't forget that. That's what liberty is. Freedom from arbitrary control. Well, these fellas, they went on strike there in Verdun. They went on strike, and then the company locked them out. So they had no jobs, and they all had families there. So what happened? The company wasn't going to lose money. Oh, no, they weren't going to lose money. So they sent their train down to Birmingham, Alabama, with these flyers. Your flyers there, they wanted 175 laborers. Oh, but there's something in there. They didn't want just laborers. They wanted good colored miners. So the train was sent from Verdun, the coal train was sent from Verdun down to Birmingham, Alabama to get 175 good colored miners. And if you read on through, they had to buy their own ticket and bring their own tools. And a lot of them brought their families. Well, our fellas there waited along the train tracks because they knew that that train was coming with the laborers who didn't know anything about this strike in Verdun. Innocently, lambs being sent to the slaughter. And when the train got just south of Verdun, the miners, because they weren't going to blow the whistle on that train, oh no, the miners heard it on the railroad tracks, trembling the tracks. And the trains are coming. And the miners all rushed to the tracks in solidarity to stop that train, to keep it from coming and unloading those 175 miners and their families. But what our boys didn't know, what our boys waiting along the tracks with rocks and sticks and their squirrel rifles didn't know, that on every one of those train cars, there was a guard. And these guards had all been supplied with brand new 1894 Winchester rifles, the ones with the lever action, the octagon barrel, the tube magazine underneath that can hold 9 bullets and 1 in the chamber. And they began to fire down onto the crowd and were able to keep firing and killed our boys. 5 of the guards got shot. 5 of them were shot. And General Bradley, he called out, "Send for a doctor, send for a doctor." Oh, but it was too late. It was too late for our boys. And they went and buried them there in Verdun. But the city fathers argued for an entire year, not wanting murderers buried in the city cemetery. And so they dug them up. They did. They dug them up. And the miners, the Union miners, purchased the acre of land there in Mount Olive to bury those boys. And it was my desire that when I die, I be buried in that same clay with those brave boys who gave their lives for this nation, for the Union, making Illinois the best Union state in America. I thought, until there wasn't an ounce of breath left in these old bones, I faced their guns. I endured their lies. I survived their prison. Don't you go to sleep on me. I see you rubbing your eyes. Don't you go to sleep on me. I survived their prisons. 3 times I was thrown into prison. Well, I spent my 81st birthday there, you know. Later on, it was late at night, and they brought an old fella into the jail, and they locked him up. And when the jailers left, I said, say, old fella, what you here for? He said, oh, mother, I stole a pair of shoes. Stole a pair of shoes, said I. Wait, if you'd have stole a railroad, they'd have sent you to Congress. Oh, it doesn't matter what race, creed, gender, or political banner you stand under. We're laborers. We're all laborers, and we're in this fight together. We've got to stand together in solidarity. If we don't, there's no hope for any of us. Learn about your history. If you don't, you're bound to repeat it. Educate yourselves so that you don't fall into the same traps that our forefathers did. Listen to mother. Listen. I'm not a humanitarian. I am not. I'm a hellraiser. And I'm going to continue to fight. Fight for my boys who want fair wages, equality, justice. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep. And don't you go to sleep again.
It's
And
always
8 hours.
dangerous to approach her at a microphone.
8
She
hours
once
of
knocked
liberty.
me off a stage, but I'm approaching her nonetheless because our time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mother.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mother. We brought you flyers if you're interested in our May Day program and how to contact us in there.
But you sit down, I'm gonna give you this.